أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. In our last episode, we were speaking about how we are able to understand Islam within the boundaries of time and progress, and look at the different usages of the concept of rationalizing or reason. We also spoke about the legislative sources for our Sharia, for jurisprudence, and the difference between the akhbaris and the usulis. Very, very briefly, of course. And these are all key points, hopefully, for you, the participant, to be able to further your understanding and discussion and research into all of these topics. Ultimately, within the time period that has been allocated, there's not that much that can be said. In further levels, this is an introductory level. In further levels, I would believe of it being very important for us to expand, especially as I've been emphasizing on in the concept of ijtihad. Now, when it comes to how we are able to look at the process of how we deal with time. You see, we might understand time to be something we look at as far as fashion is concerned, or as far as our dress code is concerned, or as far as our interaction with other people is concerned, or maybe as far as the issue of what is the method of your transport means. These examples like food and clothing and means of transport, these are very shallow examples that, we're able to find ways of conforming ourselves with them. And Islam is not something that, condemns such a thing. Yes, you need to make sure that you observe the criterion given to you by your religion, Islam, what your ulama have said as far as clothing is concerned. Clothing should be modest. Clothing should not be something that would make you become a representative of another religion, or you following symbols of other civilizations or other religions or things like that. You need to be proud of your heritage, your religion, and issues like that. But besides that, you can wear trousers, or you can wear jeans, or you can wear this, or you can wear that. There's no issue, there's no problem with that. You don't need to stay with the same hairstyle. You don't need to keep that wooden miswak. You can use a toothbrush, you can use toothpaste, you can use a car or a plane or a helicopter. You don't need to use a camel. You can also accept technology, and you can use a computer, you can use any other means of filming or even photography. I was in Makkah al-Mukarramah, and one of the volunteers there, with those very common descriptions that they have, they grabbed me while I was taking a picture very far from the Holy Kaaba with a mobile phone, and he took it and he said, this is bid'ah, and how are you doing bid'ah? I said, yes, but you've got an ID card that has your picture on it. How was that taken? And so, we can't trick ourselves into branding everything as innovation and bid'ah. If it wasn't during the time of the Holy Prophet, then it shouldn't be accepted. Unfortunately, people do have this kind of mentality, unfortunately. But they live in a very, very ugly life of double standardness, where, even though they say, well, this is bid'ah and that is bid'ah, but they have no hesitation purchasing a very high-end car, or traveling on a luxurious plane, or things like that. So, there are a lot of discrepancies in that kind, and that's why it's extremism, and that's why balance is always the most important thing. You don't want to be too modern. You also do not want to be too backward. You don't want to be too much involved in worldly affairs. You also do not want to be too detached from the realities of society and our world. Living with time does not mean that we dress like everyone else or against everyone else. Living with time has no relevance to these kind of things. It means that we are able to adjust ourselves in the positive, good way. It also means that we don't have to change everything that we had from the past, because not everything in the past is bad. Not everything that was practiced in the past necessarily is bad. And we did mention that some, unfortunately, in our interaction with people, that's cultural, and they say that's cultural. Why is the question here that I would like to pose is all culture bad? Are there things that you practice in your own cultural mindset that is bad? And are there things that are good that you practice within your own cultural mindset? So not all culture is bad. The same thing as not all progress is bad. Not all things that were in the past is also bad. And that's why, even though there is progress, there is also regress. Even though there are so many advancements, but at the same time, there is so much backwardness happening as well. With these very technological tools that we have that can be used for the most noble of things, for the best of things, are also being used for the most devastating of things. And we gave the example of the atomic bomb and nuclear weapons and things like that. As far as moral issues are concerned, this very camera that is used for spreading of knowledge can also be used for the worst of other things, for sedition, for fitna, for promoting of corruption, moral corruption, and things like that as well. And so when it comes to the maslaha and when it comes to the mafsada and issues related to that, we need to understand that Islam opposes all kind of corruption. The question again that we need to also ask ourselves is it possible for a society with this progress that is occurring, with this advancement that we can see in today's time, is it possible for a society to fall into corruption? The answer obviously is yes. There is the likelihood of a society becoming corrupt. And we see that all the time, everywhere. In today's world right now, we can see corruption, we can see moral backwardness, we can see political backwardness, we can see oppression, we can see tyranny, we can see all of these bad, evil traits in some parts of our society. Does that mean we accept all of these things? Of course not. And so with progress, there is also in many elements regress as well. And so whether it's something that you see to be in today's world or something that you see to be before, you as a person who is trying to deal with the traditional Islam in the modern world, you don't need to accept absolutely everything that is dictated onto you through mass media, through your university, through reading a random book, through the statement of a famous person or something like that. It's not the case that you have to either be with time or be against time. No, you can be with a little bit of time, and you can also be with against a little bit of time. And you can also be against some of the issues of the past. You can also accept and acknowledge and continue on with some of the issues of the past. So there must be some kind of scale and a criterion, or else we will certainly be deviated away from the path, even if it means that you become all alone on your path. As long as you know that you are in balance, you are in moderation, you are doing what is correct. Things don't need to change because it's based on what you like or what you don't like, or what you accept or what you don't accept as an individual or as a society, because the society might be wrong. If you are able to ascertain that this piece of information or this practice is compliant with the requirements of what it is that Almighty God wants from you, then you need to adhere to it as a whole. As far as other issues are concerned, like how we are able to accept certain things that the majority maybe of mainstream society might not accept, like capital punishment, like the punishment of a thief. If someone was to steal something, as the Quran says, then they need to have their hand severed, cut off as a punishment. Now, one might say, well, this is, what kind of archaic law is this? This is a very backward law. This is very uncivilized. This is something that is rejected by the mainstream society, or this is very barbaric. The question that we need to ask is, number one, is theft something good or something bad? No one will accept that it is something good. So, in principle, we all agree that theft is something bad. Number two, should the person be punished for theft? If the answer is yes, which obviously it will be, we will go to number three. So, these first two are things that we have used through our reason. The third one, we need to refer back to legislation and see what legislation says. Islam has its own system of legislative law. Other religions and other societies have their own understanding of legislative law. And therefore, when you look at it in Islam, and then a person might see it in surface value and say, well, what happens if the guy's poor? What happens if this? What happens if that? There are so many conditions that have been laid down for this particular punishment in order for it to be acted upon. It's not as simple as, oh well, he stole a loaf of bread and he was poor and he needed food, let's chop off his hand. Absolutely not. Unfortunately, it's these radical extremists, that have really portrayed these things in the most negative and practice these things in the most negative and un-Islamic ways possible. Now, that being said, when it comes to something like taking disciplinary measures and dealing with someone who is evil or someone who is wicked, Islam has its own system, and Islam is in conformity with all of this. And this is something also that we need to look into and evaluate. Now, ultimately, as Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, don't be worried about your loneliness in the path if you know that you are following the truth, because the followers of the truth are always going to be scarce, always going to be a few amount. As a human being, our spirit has always been the same. It will always be the same. There are these general principles that have always been there and will always be there. And therefore, with the issue of Islam and time, these are the things that needs to be looked at and further researched, inshaAllah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi tahirin.